And welcome to the spoiler room, my friends. Yes, we are rounding out our Western month. We are heading into the sunset, but before we do that, we've got one more film to watch. And I just going to preface this by saying I had not planned this to have this movie be actually rather pertinent for being the last of Western month, but it just ended up that way. And we'll get more into that tonight as we talk about The Quick and the Dead from 1995. And tonight, in the crew who is with me to talk about this interesting, more modern Western, let's get started. First off, we have Cole. Hello, Cole. How are you doing tonight?
Howdy, sir. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Glad to have you in the spoiler room. And next to Cole is none other than the BFD himself, Mr. Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn.
Hello. I heard of that guy. He's pretty cool.
Glenn is pretty cool, and he made it to us tonight on his horse. He rode on in to help talk about The Quick and the Dead. And next to him, returning to the spoiler room once again, is Scotty D. Hello, Scott.
Ma'am. I mean, sir. Hi.
Man, if I was
trying to be all cowboy gentlemanly.
If I was a ma'am, I don't think I'd be. Never mind. We won't go there. Anyway, so tonight, yes, we are talking about The Quick and the Dead from 1995, directed by, wait for it, Sam Raimi. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with this particular Western, we get the story of a female gunfighter who returns to a frontier town where a dueling tournament is being held, which she enters in an effort to avenge her father's death. Yes, folks, we talked earlier this month about Tombstone, which was a actor known name filled film, and this one is kind of, only it's a little bit of a different list of actors. I think we've got Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman, Russell Crowe, Leonardo DiCaprio, Keith David, Lance Henriksen, and once again Pat Hingle. Let's go down the list to get initial feelings for this 90s Western. Glenn, let's start with you this evening. How did you feel when you first saw The Quick and the Dead?
It's a decent popcorn flick.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, it's by no means a great Western, but it was fun. Gene Hackman gets to be all, angry, Gene Hackman that he does so well. He plays a great bad guy. He really does. So, I mean, you have him doing a great performance, and, I mean, you have Leo not doing anything in particularly good or bad. Sharon Stone in leather pants.
Yeah.
Well. And Russell Crowe. I mean, no one really shines in this aside from, I think, Hackman, who I think does, what he does well. Everyone else is just kind of there. I mean, Lance Henriksen is fine in it, too. I like him as Ace.
Yeah, I liked Lance in this as well. I actually, rewatching it, I forgot just how many people are in it. You also got Gary Sinise playing the father of the Sharon Stone's character when we get in flashbacks, which I completely forgot he was in this. So, yeah, you're right. Popcorn flick, that's a good way to describe it. Scotty D, what about you when you first saw this?
Well, when this came out, I really wanted to see it badly because I knew who directed it.
Yeah.
And, this was back before anybody really knew who Sam Raimi was, unless you were really following it. I mean, he wasn't doing Spider-Man at this point. He wasn't even doing his more prestigious films like The Gift or Simple Plan or Love of the Game. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And I kept waiting and missed it entirely when it was in the theater. I guess I must have been in an especially rough 2 weeks of high school for me because those because it was gone pretty quick. Or college, I guess it was college. It was rough week of college, but it was gone pretty quick, and I didn't get a chance to see it. And I finally caught it on video, and then I caught it again, and then I caught it again, and then I caught it again. I basically watched this movie at least 24 times on VHS when I was in college and stuff. I mean, I loved it. I think earlier, I will actually go on high praise for this one. I think when we did Darkman, I think I said that it was that was my second favorite Sam Raimi film. I lied. This is
Really?
this is my second favorite Sam.
You're breaking up
Raimi
just a
film.
little bit.
I loved this movie. I did not see a missed beat in the movie when I watched it again. I said that maybe that last shot, it should have faded out and had a big "the end" come up on the screen, but other than that, it's fine. I love the movie.
Awesome. And Cole, how about you with your feelings of Quick and the Dead when you first saw it?
Yeah, I'm with Scott on this, man. This is a lavish, gorgeous, really potent Western. I mean, it is the type of Western that only exists in the movies. You know, it's more Back to the Future 3 than it is Unforgiven in terms of authenticity. That said, what a movie. I mean, just to look at it is a boon. I mean, these shots, you know, when it first came out, I saw it on video, VHS, cropped. And I'm just so glad that those days are sort of, you know, we all have our VHS machines and we watch those tapes as a novelty. But this is a widescreen movie, and watching it last night in widescreen again, I got a little misty, man. Some of these shots are just iconic. They're just etched into my brain. I'd never forgotten them. It's just the movie is just a set of really, really good sequences, classic Raimi style, long takes, and to see some of these stars before they were so convinced of who they could be is great. Russell Crowe is phenomenal. Leonardo DiCaprio is phenomenal. I mean, Sharon Stone, I think, is really good here too. I think everybody in this movie is doing a great job. They're obviously working their asses off. I taught myself to twirl a gun professionally. I mean, I can do that. Believe me, it takes work. I mean, these actors twirling these guns, they're really doing it on the screen. And it's something else, man. That takes a lot of practice to do that. It took me the better part of a year to be able to flip a full weight pistol forward and backward and holster it like lightning. That's some shit. It takes a lot out of you, man. At least it did for me. Yeah, I love this film. Alan Silvestri's score is phenomenal. I'd love to have the soundtrack. He did. I mean, if the movie wasn't called Young Guns 2, I think his score for that movie would be one of the best Western scores of all time. It just doesn't get the praise it does because it's in the movie that it's in. But here, I'm surprised his work doesn't get more recognition. It's really good. He sets the tone for the film without letting it get in the way of the action. And it's also worth noting that there really aren't any action scenes, right? This movie is just an assembly of high noon standoffs, and considering there's not really any reported cases of, you know, such a thing ever really happening, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, at the end there's the explosions, and there are some problems in the third act. There's too many tragedies, I think, in a movie that maybe should have been having a bit more fun with its concept. You know, once the rape of the little girl happens, nothing else can quite, you know, reaches that dramatic impact. So the movie's kind of left with this dank residue for the rest of its time. But overall, I'm with Scott. I mean, I would give this nearly my highest rating possible, except for that, yeah, the third act is weighted down by just a bunch of really sad moments that I think could have been raked together a little better.
Yeah, I agree in that it was almost like they wanted to say, let's really, really nail it home.
Yeah,
how bad some of these people are, because you haven't figured that out on your own yet. It was very heavy-handed.
Yeah, exactly, man. Glenn said it terrifically. But other than that, I think, just the look of the film and the way it's assembled alone. You guys were talking about Nolan before we went on, and I think, where his fan base is mainly people who get into the science of filmmaking, the precision of it, the precision of his style. And Raimi has that. I mean, it's just a boon to sit back, regardless of how flawed the movie is, and watch this guy just steeped in his craft. And apparently he felt bad about this film for a few years afterward. I hope that, now that, with the internet and some people reappraising it, that he feels better about his work here, because I personally think it's a really, really, really good film.
And the other funny part is the ending. Raimi didn't write.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Whedon wrote that, right?
Whedon wrote the ending.
Yeah.
He was actually he was brought in to fix the ending because Raimi didn't like the ending he originally came up with.
Really?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Wow, that's interesting. Because it's blended fairly well. So, it does take that tonal shift in the third act, which I was going to ask you guys about on that with but we'll get to that part in a little bit. You mentioned Sharon Stone, and well, I'll give my thoughts real quick. When I first saw this film, I didn't get it. I really didn't. I thought it was a bit hokey, and no offense, we're talking 1995. I was 20, so I watched it for one reason and one reason only.
Russell Crowe.
Well, okay, two reasons. No.
Keith David.
I watched it for Miss Sharon Stone. I watched it for Sharon Stone. And yes, she I'd seen, you had Basic Instinct in there, and we're talking, I was 20-year-old guy. So, yeah, can you blame me? But I watched it, I'm like, oh, Sharon Stone in leather pants in a Western. Okay. And when I first saw this film, outside of Gene Hackman, I really thought it was hokey. And it's got its hokey bits.
It is.
It is, but Glenn put it properly that it's a good popcorn Western, and especially now after having gone through Western month here and watching some of the more serious Westerns, I'm watching it going, well, first off, I completely forgot Sam Raimi directed it when I first saw it, but again, 20 years old, you don't pay attention as much.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite realize. So watching it now and realizing, oh wait, that was Raimi, and watching it, I'm like, holy crap, this is like Evil Dead meets the Wild West.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's his style. It's got, it had the Evil Dead goofiness, the camera work, everything is his signature stuff in here. And I realized he was trying to really have fun with this film. And when I first saw it, I went into it expecting a bit more serious Western. And it takes that shift in the third act. But when this film opens, at least, it's got every Western cliche in there. We get Ellen, the character played by Sharon Stone, and they're trying to establish her as a badass, which, they kind of do in this film. But you get this great shot, which actually comes around at the end of the film as well, where she gets shot at by this guy who's digging for gold. And he shoots her off her horse, and you think she's dead, and of course she's not. She turns around and gets the jump on him. But she stands over him, and there's a silhouette with a bullet hole going through her hat. And the minute I saw that shot, I'm like, oh, man, this is just Raimi having fun with a Western.
Yep.
I'm sitting here going, okay, revisiting it, because I hadn't watched this film for so many years, and putting it in that context and being a more experienced film watcher, I realized what he was getting, and especially watching all these Westerns each week, catching all the cliches he was putting there on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
All the
single.
Go ahead.
Yeah, everything else. I was just gonna say every single thing is like just pumped up and exaggerated so much, and every cliche is exaggerated. I don't know how many of you guys do this. I used to always read the local reviews in the paper every Friday when stuff would come out. And the one I would read locally was Chris Hewitt in the St. Paul Pioneer Press. And I remember his review starting out by mentioning, it's like, let's tell you what kind of Western this is. He says, like, the door opens and you have this long shadow of a gunfighter who's played by Lance Henriksen. This is like the Ace Hanlon part. Entrance. He says, like, is this our main bad guy? Is he the greatest villain in the whole stinking town? Nope. He's just a guy who happens to cast one mean long shadow. And I thought, yup, that's it. It's just like one of those random bits that Lance Henriksen has this incredibly long shadow that the camera follows in, because it's playing with that idea of like the bad guy entering the saloon from the swinging doors and stuff, you know? Everything is, it not only brings up every cliche, it like amplifies every cliche.
Oh yeah, every one of these characters who are involved in the shootouts are embodiments of classic cliched Western characters. You know, from Leonardo being the kid who's really fast to, you know, Russell Crowe being the gunman turned preacher. You know, the Swedish guy who shows up. I mean, all these characters, Keith David's character, they're all embodiments of cliches. Would you say with that, Glenn, that each one of these characters are just amped up Western cliches?
Oh yeah, and you mentioned Keith David. It's one of my favorite characters in this is his.
Yeah.
I just that he's got just Sergeant Cantrell. How do you spell that? Correctly. Because it's just, and he's got the perfect voice, because the way his voice sounds too is just so perfect for it.
Yeah, Keith. It's Keith David. I could watch it. I'll watch him in anything.
Spawn.
Huh?
The true Spawn.
The true Spawn. Yes.
That voice is just so awesome, man.
Yeah, and his character, I like his character as well. He's this cold gunman and everything. So he's you know, a gun for hire. And again, yes, spoiler room, folks. And his character is hired by the town folks because they think he's going to be their best chance to kill the Gene Hackman character, which, of course, you can imagine how things go with that. You know, and you got Ace by Lance Henriksen, he's even got that jacket with the aces on it. It's just the black leather and everything about him. It's like, I love all these characters, and you could tell the performers were just hamming it up a bit, couldn't you, Cole?
Absolutely, man. It's you know, it's almost circular. It's almost, they're so exaggerated in this film, the caricatures, that they almost come back around to being realistic again. It's almost like they're so exaggerated that they transcend the cliche and become original. Mm-hmm. In a few of the roles. But in any case, I think it you know, works to the film's advantage, because it is you know, a Hollywood version of the Old West. I mean, none of this, you know, has any semblance, aside from the fact that people are drinking and carrying guns. You know, this is very exaggerated. So it works on that level. It's, you know, it works on the level that Edward Scissorhands does or something. It's a fairy tale. You know, it's sort of an examination of caricatures in a place and time, and not really a real place. And by that measure, it's okay when she fakes her own death, you know, and it's okay when buildings explode when they don't need to. And it's okay that these people don't really feel lived in, that they're more just sketches of really extreme emotions. The problem is when they deal with these heavy themes that, for instance, in a movie like Unforgiven, which Gene Hackman is also in, deals with a lot of the same issues, rape and really horrible things. Well, those things work in that movie because it's built to sustain that weight. The caricatures in this film aren't built to sustain the tragedy in the last half, but I'm sounding like a broken record.
No, it's okay. Well, I want to talk about that, but we're talking about the other characters, so let's talk about the two main the main ones in here. And Scotty D, how'd you feel about Sharon Stone's Ellen? Did you buy into that she was a badass, or are we, the way the trailers and everything supposed to make her a badass, like gunslinger, and that she's not actually that, is she? In this film?
No, she's not. She's not, and I didn't realize that until. I mean, of course I realized it earlier on, but I didn't get the weight of that, like how much they really drove that home until this last time watching it. When I was watching it, which is like dozens of times later, dozens of years later, I'm watching this movie and I'm like, wow, they really, I mean, you can, looking at it again and knowing the secret of the movie.
Right.
It's not just like, yeah, there's this badass and then you see her vulnerability later. Like, no, you get this person who is pretending to be a badass. And to some degree, she is kind of a toughie. I mean, she's certainly tougher than most women of the era, certainly more than most women of the era were conditioned to be, let's just say that. You also get, what she was going for. Now, Sharon Stone's an actress where used to be I didn't rate her much in the early days. I remembered, I think the first thing I saw her in was King Solomon's Mines, and I said, oh, God, she's never working again. Little did I know,
Whoa, she was in that? Wow.
Yeah, did you listen to our episode of that?
Yeah.
That I forced everybody to watch those two movies?
She was the gal. Yeah, she was the gal in the Alan Quatermain films.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I'd actually seen her before in her All Together in Irreconcilable Differences as well. But so I'm like, wow, she's not that good. And of course, no one was good in those movies. Those were bad movies. And then like when she would show up later on, like Total Recall, I'm like, oh, it's her. Well, and then I think I saw her in Action Jackson. I'm like, oh, it's her again. And then Total Recall, oh, it's her again. And Basic Instinct like shot her into the cosmos, but I was like, I don't know. And I really wasn't that much into her. This was the first film that made me, and then I started to notice her more around like Sliver time, like because I saw. It's not a great movie, okay? I know this. We had a discussion on the internet before about how I mentioned I'd seen Sliver twice in the theater, and it was so bad that the people I brought with me to the second showing threatened to kick my ass afterwards. But
it is a great book for our listeners who are listening. There is a book called Sliver, and it's great. So
I still need to read the book. I hear the book is so much better. Well, Ira Levin's better than Joe Esterhazy any day of the week. So, but like, and I like then there was the specialist. I'm like, okay, and she did this, and I'm like, okay, I'm really on board with her now. I'm really kind of starting to get interested in what she's doing. And in '95, she did what I think are her two best films. Quick and the Dead might be the most enjoyable film of hers that she's done. I love this movie. Her next film, Casino, is by far her best performance.
Right.
She's fantastic in Casino. She's amazing in Casino.
Yeah.
And I even think that she did a couple parts later on that she didn't get credit for. I thought she was very good in Last Dance, which isn't a great movie, but she was really good in it. But in this movie, I thought she did a really good job. I'm like, she's not the damsel in distress. She's not the femme fatale. She is the Western anti-hero, and she carries all the gravitas with that part that it requires, along with that surprise that she is not the Western anti-hero. I thought that was such a clever little like bait and switch, and I love what she does with the part. So I think she does a great job. I love her facial expressions. I love like how she carries herself, how every time, and now when you watch it, you can see if it looks like she's posing, like when she's getting her boots shined or having a whiskey in the bar. You now know she is posing.
Right.
She is acting. She is an actress who is acting an acting role. I love it. It's a lot of so I thought that she did a really good job with this film. So yeah, this is the one where I was sort of getting intrigued around like seeing like, okay, she got kind of big from Basic Instinct. Let's see what she does with it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the one where I'm like, now I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
Interested in see what she does. And you know what? She's done a lot of shitty movies over the years after the fact, but I still think that she's a damn good actress when she's given the right material.
Yeah, and I caught a lot more nuances in her and ticks and things that she was doing in this one that, again, I didn't get on initial viewing. Glenn, how about you and your feelings with the Ellen character? Did it kind of surprise you that this, they played her off, especially in some of the trailers, as supposed to be being the badass, but that wasn't really the case?
I wasn't really surprised how they ended up portraying her, and they've done this in movies before where it's here's this person who is playing this part of being the tough, but they're really not. But then they end up being that way anyways because they have to be the hero.
Right. How'd you feel about?
Boy, no pleasing him.
But how'd you feel about Sharon Stone in this role?
She's fine.
Yeah. You think she did well enough, at least?
Yeah, I think she did fine. I mean, I think that if you had swapped her out with a half dozen other actresses, it'd play out no different.
Right. Well,
but I think it could have definitely been worse. I don't think she did a bad job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think she did either on the second viewing. Like I said, first viewing, but the second viewing now I catch her because you catch a lot more of her and you realize she's not really this cold badass. All she wants is revenge. And she keeps getting these looks like, oh, I should just shoot him now. Or I just do this now. No, wait. I'm supposed to be a badass. I'm supposed to play it cool. Play it cool. I kind of like that with her that I didn't pick up the first time. Cole, how'd you feel about Sharon Stone in this?
Well, I just want to ask the panel a quick question. Was the sex scene always there with her, or did I just forget about it?
No, it was always there.
Huh. That's interesting because
which one?
The one between her and Russell Crowe. I just didn't remember that. I swear. There was this.
That's because it wasn't there. That's because that is only in international versions of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh. No wonder.
In fact, you saw a version that I still have not seen.
Yeah,
they shot this sequence where there was a love scene between her and Russell Crowe, and basically everybody agreed, okay, we get it. Basically, she was kind of expected to always throw a sex scene in there. They also threw a gratuitous scene into The Specialist, which was not originally in the script.
Gotcha.
Because she was known for Basic Instinct. Yeah. She's the symbol. And
can I just say it's ridiculous and it doesn't work at all? I mean, it almost looks like really, it looks like she may have, because she was, producer, like they may have even had a boob stand in. I mean, there's a cutaway where her shirt opens and it's like completely obvious. Her face is nowhere in it. It's perfectly framed. I mean, it's really not a good scene. She goes down on him. It's like,
but they fade to black after the go down. So
yeah, they do. But I just think a sex scene after a rape.
How did you see this? I'm like, I don't know. How
I guess I should not open my. Here's the thing.
No. Never mind. Let's not incriminate
a romantic scene after a rape scene does not work. I just think it's ridiculous.
Wow, that's where they put it.
It throws the movie off. That said, Mark, to answer your original question, I think she is really good. I mean, she plays this up, right? Her first big reveal after the fight with the gold digger is where she opens the saloon doors, right? The swinging saloon doors and glides on in. And I mean, she's doing everything that a guy would do in this role. I mean, I think it's fantastic. Glenn obviously is right. I'm sure there are many other actresses in 1994, 1995 who could have owned this too. But I think that just for the work that she needs to do here, it's good. And there is a level of commitment there. I didn't realize that she was a producer on this until the credits roll, but she is invested in this way more than, with Sliver, I don't know, some of the stuff that she did after Basic Instinct was like, she doesn't really know where she wants to go. She's a sex symbol and she wants a career, but these movies obviously aren't good and she knows it. This is something I felt like she had maybe a shot of, coming out and differentiating herself. So there's a level of commitment. And I think she trusted Sam Raimi. You can tell these weird shots he puts her in. You know that if you don't understand Sam Raimi's work and you show up on a set, you're going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? What is this? But she obviously trusts him. That great shot where she says, "Some people deserve to die," and Hackman is framed into the back. Oh, that's so beautiful.
I was just about to bring that shot up. It's a deep focus shot.
Yeah,
that's so rare.
He's got a couple of those.
Shot where everything in the shot is in focus. There's nothing that's blurred out, just like an Orson Welles film.
Yeah.
And he's got a couple of those shots throughout the film where you've got that, all deep focus, where everything's in focus. So it just is this really surreal. You get this really close up of this face, and you got people in the background. You can see it all, and you're just like, this is weird for a Western, kind of, But yeah, Sharon Stone as the Ellen character, I think she plays it well, especially if you realize that she's playing a part of trying to be a badass when secretly she's just this really vengeful woman inside who just wants to kill the one guy who forced her to kill her dad in a brutal role. This third act, you guys are right. This third act is so tonally different from the rest of the film. And I'm not sure if they did that to try to give it some dramatic effect, to weigh it a bit, but you're right. There's the implied rape scene with the girl running out, which sends Ellen into a frenzy. And then right after that, the scene where she goes tracking down the preacher, pulls him away from the guys who are beating the crap out of him, throws him in another room and says, "We could both die tomorrow." And then and jumps his bones.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't see that. It was not in the American cut. The idea was that they put them in there, and I think, and it was kind of a thing where the studio was like, "Come on, let's do this," and basically Sharon Stone, Russell Crowe, and Sam Raimi, after it was shot, all agreed. They said, "This makes no sense."
It doesn't.
To do
it really
this.
doesn't.
And so in what it would be one of many cases of this happening throughout action movie history, they cut the scene out, but in international versions it was still there because they didn't have to. It's like, we don't care what you say, we're leaving it in there. Basic Instinct was huge here, so they left it into international audiences. There's lots of action films where that's happened. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to talk about all the times that he says, there was a love scene in Commando, there was a love scene in Predator, neither one of them made sense, so we cut them out. He's like, you're fighting for your life, suddenly you're gonna just all of a sudden go behind the bushes. Doesn't make sense.
Well, they could die tomorrow. So, see, and the thing is, that's what got me with that scene, with the sex scene. It makes sense why they cut it out. Because if you want your sex appeal and you've got Sharon Stone in your film, you already had that. We had that after, she wakes up in the morning on the powder kegs and fur after having a night with a passed out Leonardo.
And they didn't do anything. They were just she was there, but she was disrupted. And that was her getting up in the morning was a sexy shot.
But yeah, here you have Sharon Stone, who's known as kind of a sex symbol now, thanks to Basic Instinct. And you get this shot where she's just laying there in a shirt with boots. She gets up, you can kind of see down her shirt, but it's not that good. I thought that was enough, for what they were going for, because they have Sharon Stone and the time the movie came out. I didn't think it was really needed altogether, but that felt a little more natural, at least the way they handle that whole scene, than the scene with her and Crow later on. I'm glad they cut it out of the original theatrical, because it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's not on the Blu-ray or anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
Well, a friend of mine had it, the international cut. So, then we have the villain, as we talked about before, and I just want to touch on him really quick because it's Gene Hackman. Folks, all the Westerns that we watched, that you've been following us on Western Month this past month, take all of the villains from each one of those films, mix them in a blender, throw in some like 3 shots of espresso, and you'll get the villain that Gene Hackman plays in The Quick and the Dead. Glenn, how'd you feel about Gene Hackman's villain? Did you feel like he was the embodiment of all evil in every Western?
Yeah, he was an over-the-top caricature, which you see it almost feels like he took parts of this character when he did Unforgiven.
Mm-hmm.
And like Unforgiven is like the more realistic version of the what's his name in this?
Harad.
Harad, yeah. It's like that's like the more realistic, if he was a real person, this is who he was based on, and this version is like the embellished,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing that the stories people tell about how awful this man was.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Kind of like if Richard Harris actually wrote that guy who played the writer, was it Saul Rubinek that played the writer in Unforgiven that was writing the book on him? Like if he actually got to write that book.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what little Bill would have been.
And what I liked about it, though, I mean, he's just having fun playing a villain, though. This character, Gene Hackman's all in, and he's a fantastic actor. I always liked Gene Hackman. And here he's really bringing some heavy darkness to this character. But what I love, there's a particular scene in here that I love of the Harad character. And it's a scene where he has to, I think it's just before he has to take on his son. I believe it is, or where he has to take on Kurt. One of the two. It's a quiet scene where he's just cleaning his gun, and it's just subtle. But I actually liked it because suddenly they took this very cold-hearted guy. It actually gave him a little bit of depth to him with that scene. Scott, you know which scene I'm talking about?
No.
You don't know. I'm trying to remember.
I gotta be honest, watching the international version, that was another scene that I absolutely did not remember. It's right before his standoff with Russell Crowe.
That's right. It was with Russell Crowe.
Yeah, and there's like a minute-long scene where he's cleaning his gun by this beautiful back, like you can see the sunrise through his little window there, and it's really intimate and almost a little sad. I mean,
not see the scene.
Yeah, well, it might have been in the international cut. All I know is
I gotta see this cut now.
All I know is it's a scene. It's after he shoots his kid.
Yeah,
because he's got to take on his kid. His kid just challenges him. It's down to 4 people: him and his kid, and Sharon Stone and Court, Russell Crowe character. Of course, they're going to have to go with each other. And it's after the scene, kills his son. And then, that we get the fake death of Ellen. Yes, spoiler room, folks. And so then he's got to take on Court. But yeah, there's this scene where he's just cleaning his gun. He's not saying anything. It's dark in the room. There's just sunlight, and he's cleaning it. And he pauses for a moment. And like I said, this is after he shoots his kid. And the way Gene Hackman plays this scene, it's like, holy crap, we just gave this character just a little bit of heart. And it added something to that character, so it must be just in the international scene version.
But that is really interesting because the thing about this character is that there really is nothing almost that is like redeemable about the person. Little Bill, you could almost see a decent man becoming horribly corrupted and evil.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. This part is just Satan.
Yeah,
well, he does have that moment, doesn't he? Not to interrupt, where he tries to talk his son out of being in the gunfight.
But
a little bit of
the thing.
Yeah, go on, Scott. Sorry.
No. I don't want to interrupt you or anything like that.
No, I interrupted you. I just wanted to mention that bit because I like it. I'm not sick or old. My day has not passed. It's really.
I know. Well, that's the thing is that he shows the barest shred of humanity there, and I don't really give him that much credit for it because
Gotcha.
he always has to be ahead. Like, look at what happened after he shot his kid. He could have done anything at that. Well, first of all, he could have not shot. He could have just said, "You know what? Fine, my day's come. I'm done."
Mhm.
Or he could have done this. He could have packed it up a lot. Basically, any father would have. He could have done that. He could have, if once he did actually do commit the unforgivable sin of shooting his kid, he could have at least let the kid die thinking he had finally bested his father. Instead, he has to let him see that he's still standing before his son dies, and his son reaches out to him and he won't take his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to constantly prove that, no, I'm still on top. That is a egotistical, evil, horrible, self-centered way to go about things. I mean, even then, I'm like, so yeah, he doesn't get a lot of credit in my book.
At least the kid did get a drop on him though. Did nick his neck.
He got it. He nicked his neck, and it wasn't enough. And I think that Gene Hackman Herod wanted to let him know, you're still not as good as me. You never would be.
Well, one of the things I got from that scene, though, I thought was interesting is, for me, maybe I was just hoping there was some shred of something in this character, because I did love him being evil, but when he took on his son, it almost felt like he had a little twinge of hope that maybe his kid would kill him. In when he gets up, when he gets up, he's kind of got that look at first, like, and then, yeah, my kid's dead, and see, I'm better. But he seemed to almost want to be killed, but I'm not sure on that. I was giving a little too much credit. No, he overall is evil incarnate in this film. He's just a cold bastard from when he first aces Ace. By shooting off his thumbs and making him completely confess that he's just a bullshit artist before he kills him. I mean, that's just damn, man. So he's an evil villain, and though he does get his just ends, of course, because it is a Hollywood popcorn film. We had the big reveal that she wasn't dead from Russell Crowe's gun. And she takes the final duel with Gene and with Herod there, and we get another shot that harkens. It comes around full circle to the beginning, and it's why I mentioned the silhouette in the beginning. We get a silhouette of a bullet hole through her hat, and then she takes out Gene Hackman's. I might have been calling him Simmons. I'm sorry, Gene Hackman character. She shot him
through his tongue.
Sorry. She shoots Gene's now I want to say Simmons. Gene Hackman's character. She shoots him, and we get a silhouette again of a hole through him. I know it's cheesy, but I loved this shot. Glenn, how'd you feel about this shot and offing off Gene of his character in the hole?
It is one of the cheesiest shots ever put to film, and it's ridiculous beyond belief, and I love it.
I know. Well, because then he's still standing there, and then after the silhouette, we get the reverse shot of him, and you see this little beam of light coming out of the hole. And I just I loved it so much. Oh, and then she's got her gun upgraded. It was like Scott Pilgrim, because her gun upgrades, and then she shoots him in the head, and he flips like 360 in the air and lands on the ground. Then final. Oh.
Lady has earned the power of determination.
Cole, what'd you think of this finale and just the whole thing with the silhouette and the bullet hole, and suddenly her handgun becomes like 3,000 power cannon?
You're all so right about this, and you guys know me. This is typically the type of thing that I don't like. But the thing is this, like, as I was saying earlier, there's no real shootouts. They're more standoffs between two people, right? So in order to come up with all this stuff, you have a room full of people, like a slasher movie. You've got a room of people trying to figure out interesting ways to kill people. Well, with The Quick and the Dead, you've got a room full of people trying to figure out how to make these high noon style standoffs original. I mean, how are you going to do it? Which is why I'm sure they cast so many talented people, but also why Sharon Stone, I'm sure, was interested in Raimi, because he's a visual stylist and he can turn this stuff into something that's compelling aside from just drawing a gun and shooting. So I would assume that's where it came from. As it plays out, I think, for me, it's maybe a little too quick. Mm-hmm. But I and some of the stuff, like apparently he sees the bullet coming because he has time to scream before
it goes through his eye and takes out the back of his head.
Before it goes through his eye and turns them into the bus from Terminator 5 or 6 or whatever the hell that was. But again, I'm going to give it some slack, especially watching it again last night, because there's only so much you can do with a standoff where two people have pistols and they're trying to make it dramatic and appealing, and it's cool and cheesy as hell.
It's cheesy, but so damn cool. Yeah. Scotty, how about you with the offing of the final villain? What'd you think about this whole scene?
They had to do him off in a. Would you have been happy if you just saw him like shot, clutch his chest, and fall down to the ground? I wouldn't have. He's earned so much more than that. So you have that weird, awkward moment with the beam of light and stuff. You notice there's like nothing in there. It's like he's hollow and stuff like that, which I thought was a nice touch because the guy's basically got no soul.
Yeah.
And you have to off him in a really satisfying way, so the audience will just kind of sit there quietly nod and be like, damn right, that's what you get, son. And they get that when he screams, gets shot to the eye, and does a somersault in the air before landing face first in the dirt. That'll do, Raimi. That'll do.
Well, here's the thing, and it is cheesy. It is one of the most cheesy shots ever, and it's so just out there. But I think why it works is, one, yes, Gene Hackman's character is so evil. You just want to see something really bad happen to him. But two, the style of Raimi was throughout this film. So by the time you get to like Keith David's death, where he gets this huge hole through his head and you can see through it, just blew out his entire skull.
That's so cool.
That was cool. Cheesy, but cool. And then here, by that point in the film, yes, they want to amp up the duels, but also it's Raimi's style. It was consistent throughout the film, so it wasn't jarring at all. It fit within the context of the film because everything else was so hyper real and so get some cheesy cliche shots in here. But because of that, he sets it up so by the end, yeah, you're rooting for it and you don't care if it's cheesy because holy shit, he's got a hole through him. That's awesome.
See, I thought this whole movie was so bonkers and everything. And let's be honest, now we love the cast. We love the whole cast. Don't you look at Gene Hackman though? Now there was a small Western resurgence after Unforgiven and Tombstone. I should also say, actually, I think.
Well, Tombstone started
Unforgiven came before.
Tombstone.
Unforgiven came out before Tombstone, though.
Yeah.
So there was like a Western resurgence for that. Now think about this then. Starting with Unforgiven, even though there still wasn't like a ton of Westerns being made, Hackman was in a Western in 92, 93, 94, and then he was in this in 95. Don't you take some kind of perverse joy that an actor as seasoned as Gene Hackman, who is just like, he retired years ago. People might forget how amazing this guy was. An actor as seasoned as Gene Hackman taking his Western role and saying, this one is just crazy as all get out. You're going to see shots of me perfectly framed through a hole that I just shot in someone's head. You're going to see me hollowed out and stuff like that, like I'm Swiss cheese. Don't you... Isn't there just some like perverse joy in watching that and knowing that it's not like a poking fun of that Hackman was probably totally on board with the whole thing?
Oh yeah.
But sure, Raimi is, actors love him because he loves actors and he's good. And just very quickly for the Saw fans out there who may be listening, Tobin Bell is one of the villains as well. We hadn't mentioned that. So
yeah, he's the one from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's the one that she chains to a wagon wheel. So we're gonna go down real quick now with our crew here, and I asked them to bring a topic or something that we may not have talked about already tonight. So we'll go down and see if anyone has anything, and if not, that's all right too. We've covered this film probably a lot longer than many other people have out there. So first, we'll start off with Cole. Cole, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about with this film?
I mean, we sort of covered it earlier. I wanted to mention the fate of what's the fine actress's name, Olivia Burnett, who plays the young Katie. Do you think that scene, even though it happens off screen, perhaps diminishes what happens to Sharon Stone's father later, which is, I mean, or in even Leonardo DiCaprio's death? I mean, once you rape a little girl, isn't the movie sort of over? I don't know. I just wonder if that wasn't just an unnecessary tool, if they couldn't done her relationship with that old pervert a little differently. I just it bugged me, and this is one of my favorite Westerns of all time. And I watched it again tonight and just thought, this is the type of thing that only a male director would handle this way. And there's no resolution with her character. We don't really see how it affects her. We see how it affects Sharon Stone. But all she's really shown is just standing next to people for the rest of the movie. I don't know. It just felt off to me.
It makes me wonder, though, how young she was supposed to be, because I mean she looked young, but because she was played by Olivia Burnett.
Olivia, I have it written down right here. Yeah, Olivia Burnett, a fine actress. She's been in tons of other shit as well.
She was,
but she's
18.
2 years. Yeah, she's 2 years older than me, so she would have been however old in 19.
It was 95, so she was born in 77, so she was 18 in the film,
But it looked to me like her character was 14.
Yeah, she was not supposed to be 18 in the movie.
Yeah, no, I get that. I know what they were implying. They just never did establish her full age. It's just what I'm saying. But yeah, she was meant to look younger, though they never actually say what she is. But you're right. It really is a weird, really heavy scene in the film, that up until a certain point was more of a lighter popcorn film. Glenn, did you feel this scene was kind of out of place and maybe they could have handled it differently?
Not really.
No,
I mean,
awesome.
The thing is finding something out of place in this film. I mean, what's in place?
Yeah.
And it's kind of everywhere. So yeah, it's hard to say, what doesn't really fit, because they seem to go out of their way to make it, it's just do whatever Raimi wants to do.
Yeah, it does kind of seem like they took that approach. Scott, how about you?
I think that's it's an excellent question, because my initial gut reaction would be to say, well, no, because it showed, how it spoke about the victimization of women, and that the lady there was infuriated by it, and it also shows how people were how it shows the dichotomy between the townspeople, where the Gene Hackman character says that the people in the town are are horrible, horrible, sickening people, and yet the preacher character says they're not bad people, they're just cowards, and you get to see both with the molester, and you get to see it with the Pat Hingle father character. But it would have been my gut reaction, but Cole is right. It shows how this impacts just about everybody else except for the girl herself.
Mm-hmm.
He's absolutely right in that respect. I'm like, God, they fridged her. Oh my gosh, I did not realize. And sometimes unfortunately, sometimes it takes somebody else to point that out. You're kind of right. I will, next time I watch this movie, I will look at that in a different light. It has never really bothered me before, and I still love the movie. But you are correct. If they were going to show it affect all these people, they also should have most of all showed how it affects the girl.
Yeah, they could have thrown a little part in there or something with her. We see her in the background or whatnot, but
she just disappears.
She just
it's like her part in the story is done.
Yeah.
And what the thing is with that approach is, I think they could have did it differently to where it could have been Sharon, the Ellen character, coming in and stopping just before something happens and still challenge him. And I think
that's the kind of movie it is, like Glenn's saying. It's a popcorn movie.
And doing that approach, you could still completely convince the audience of her rage on this guy, because he's been under her skin since she moseyed into town on her horse, and he gave her the sleazy eye. So she's already built up emotions against this guy. So she could have easily. And that's what you think when she comes into the bar and everybody else doesn't do anything. You think she's going to rush up there and, break in and stop what's ever happening. But by then, whatever's happened has happened. So, they could have approached that scene differently, because I think if you have her breaking in before something actually happens, you still get your point across. You can still do her running after this guy, just full guns blazing.
Yeah.
And still,
also remember, like, this is her first kill. Also, don't forget, and she is hesitant to do it even after she has been running with guns blazing. She wasn't going to do anything. She did it by instinct. She went back into the bar and calmed down, and then the guy came in and she out of self-preservation. So that was an important thing, but still.
I think they could have just set it up a little differently, but no, it's a good question, Cole. How about you, Glenn? Anything that we haven't covered already with this film that you want to talk about?
No. Well, does everybody know where the car was?
The car?
I don't.
No,
it's not in here, is it?
I missed the car. Where was the car?
They, at least according to Bruce Campbell, they disassembled it and they used the chassis for a wagon.
What?
The Oldsmobile has to show up in. Yep, the Oldsmobile has to show up in every movie.
Is that reliable info, Glenn? Is that like on?
It was Bruce.
It's
Bruce Campbell. I guess if he says it, shit.
He played the wedding shemp in this film, so
I think that was a deleted scene.
Yeah,
it
was.
But he's still in the end credits. Is that there was like a wedding sequence and he was like either in the wedding or he was a preacher or something like that.
I wish it was. I was looking for him. I'm like, that's Sam Raimi. One of them's got to show up in here. So that's awesome, Glenn. I'm gonna have to watch again just to see if I can find it. That'd be awesome. That's awesome. The chassis of a wagon. Oh, that's great. Just one more sign of Raimi and having fun with a film. Scott, did you have any other topics that we haven't maybe touched you wanted to talk about quick?
I did not, so I'm going to make one up as I go along. I'm actually going to ask two quick questions here. For one, I'm going to ask, believe it or not, we are only now starting to get this thing where you can have women be action leads. I mean, we started to see it a little bit in the 90s and stuff like that when in the early 2000s, like when Tomb Raider came out. But come on, let's face it, that movie blew. And it was also based on like a pre-discovered like sex symbol thing. We're now getting into the age where we're seeing more women leading action movies. Just this summer, what is still, I think, the best movie of so far this year, Wonder Woman.
It's a phenomenal film.
It's an incredible movie, and we're finally seeing it. And we got everybody. There's lots of action films being made with women leads. Finally, this movie didn't it didn't do anything when it came out. A little bit of an advertising push, and then once it was opened, it was like forgotten. Do you think this movie would play do you think the movie would play better today, or do you think that it would be kind of seen as a prototype for a lot of the action heroines of today?
Ooh, good question. Glenn, what do you think?
I don't think it would play today. Unless, no, I don't. At least not in the form it is. This movie made today would be made by Michael Bay. It would have shootouts with 50 people in them, and it would have horses exploding and all that type of stuff. That it's not. It's your cheesy, campy kind of movies that are made today go so far beyond over the top that it's practically insulting, I think. In a lot of them. I mean, someone, if Raimi was allowed to do it, I don't know. I don't know if I trust Raimi anymore because he's not the director I think he used to be. I don't know. It's tough. I don't think it would work as it would not show today.
Nice. Cole, how about you?
Well, I think Glenn, as usual, is right. About a lot of things, and I agree with him to a certain extent. Although, I mean, Jesus Christ, if you were to release, if we're talking about today, like 2017, yeah, it might not. Nothing really plays good anymore. To be honest, Jesus, even Spider-Man: Homecoming is having problems, and that had a great reaction. But I think that, let's say, take it back 10 years or something. Yeah, I think it would have been fine. I think, the thing about Westerns is if you don't pump them up with a cheesy score that's dated, like the original Young Guns, which was a score that was added in 3 days in post, or if you don't give them some weird, modern language that sounds totally out of place, I think Westerns can go on and on and on. I just was appalled at how good the John Wayne movie that we reviewed recently, True Grit, still is. Even next to the remake, I think they're both like, wow. You watch them both back to back, and they kind of work. So I think that The Quick and the Dead, take away the last, 8 to 10 years of sort of this transition into huge comic book movies, which I appreciate because they keep theaters open. But it seems to be anything that can fill a theater now is giant fucking robots crashing into each other. That's what you need to do. Either that or just a really high-profile comic book film, or take an indie comic book and make it sort of high-profile. So I don't think anything really works nowadays unless it's some Pacific Rim type of thing, and even that didn't work so good. What? No, I saw Pacific Rim twice. Twice. I spent $50 on that thing in the theater.
I'm just giving you shit. I'm giving you shit, Cole. I'm just giving you shit.
I say this with respect to the genre. I say this with respect. I don't think anything works. Everything is having trouble now. A movie can make $80 million, and the studio's like, fuck, we're not doing a sequel. So, yeah, The Quick and the Dead, I think, watching it hasn't aged to me. I know I'm super old. I'm 38. But I watch it, and to me, it fares better than a lot of movies made in 1995. Hey, they had the same reaction watching the similarly themed Last Man Standing, the Walter Hill Bruce Willis movie recently.
Oh,
that movie's still amazing too. So I think Glenn's right, but I just differ on perhaps the reasons, why.
The fistful of moonshine film. That's what that was. But you're right. To answer the question, I think, unfortunately, no. I don't think the way it is, it would play out today. If anything, you would get people's who don't get it would really get offended by certain parts of this film. Namely, our who is it? The Native American guy who could not be killed.
That was hilarious, though.
He was hilarious, but the way he's portrayed in it, I could definitely see that coming out today, and people would have troubles with it, not realize this is a Western, and
there's a little bit of that in Magnificent Seven, though. There's some
there is some
stereotypes.
There is still some stereotypes in it, but not nearly like in your face like this character.
Yeah, gotcha.
I loved. I cannot be killed by any bullets. I have 8 bullets in my chest, 4 in my leg, 3 in my shoulder, 2 in my head. 1 hasn't come out yet. No bullet. I'm like, did they even write his lines, or they just tell this guy, look, here's your character, roll with it, But at the same time, with today's awareness, I think there's certain aspects of this film that people really would have trouble with, and you'd have to adjust for the times, in all honesty. And it's just the way it is, I think.
I'm also going to mention one more question. I'm also going to mention just one more question. Like, this film has such a huge, we've touched on some of them. This film has such a huge cast of supporting characters and people who were either famous amongst cult circles or had not quite hit yet. Who among these is your favorite?
Ooh, which character?
Let's just say not character.
Okay.
Because I'm counting even people who were on screen for just like a couple seconds or something.
Okay.
That were actors and stuff. Who did you most like seeing in this movie?
Oh, cool. Cole, who did you like most seeing in this film?
Was this supporting cast or just everybody?
Just anybody.
Anybody say, like, aside from like maybe Stone and Hackman,
Oh yeah. Well, obviously, I love all of these people. I'm a Lance Henriksen man. I'm a Keith David guy. I like Tobin Bell. I think, much like Robert Englund, I think he's doomed forever. Not his bank account, but his career is kind of stuck, which is probably okay. But for me, honestly, man, and I'm not. With all due respect, I'm not a big Russell Crowe guy. I just never was. I never liked the majority of his movies, and I always thought his performances were based on who he thinks he is, which is a royal badass, If you've ever, you guys should just, if you want a good laugh, Google the story of the South Park guys going over to listen to the premiere of his album at his apartment. Pretty hilarious. But I actually like him. I like his character. I like his performance. It's easy to see why Sharon Stone sort of saw the potential in this guy and was like, let's give him an American debut. He's doing a lot of good gun twirling, not to sound like a broken record, but out of everybody, he's got it down, man. That's the real deal. What you see him doing is hard, and the way he delivers his dialogue, and the notion of a priest who was once an outlaw is kind of nauseating, and especially with the added sex scene that I saw last night, it was like even weirder. But still, he pulls it off because of his charisma, because of his likability. The great scene where he can't quite get a drink of water, and then it's pouring rain. I like Russell Crowe's character, and I also, honestly, I like Olivia Burnett as well. I wish her part would have been bigger, because to me, she is Sharon Stone as a kid, right? Mm-hmm. She's Sharon Stone, and then something unforgivable happens to her. I wonder if there wasn't something at the end there cut out where we could have,
There might have been.
I don't know.
And Glenn, I think we know your answer already. You mentioned it once, but your favorite actor to see on screen here?
Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, baby.
and Keith David.
Yes. Both, while they're not on screen long, really make the most of when they are on.
Yep.
Especially Lance. You could tell Lance just had fun. It was like,
Yeah.
I have a feeling they just gave Lance the costume. He's like, I got this.
Most of that costume was probably his own, actually.
Probably.
He buys rings and trinkets and anything he can find, he'll buy and just wear it.
He probably still has the jacket. I don't know.
Probably, man.
It's a pretty cool jacket. And Scotty D, how about you to answer your own question?
I've mentioned everybody's been mentioned that I love. I mean, like I love all these people, right from like Keith David, Lance Henriksen, even Sven-Ole Thorsen's in there and everything like that. And give shout outs to Russell Crowe, who I did like at this time. This was the first film I had seen him in, and then the next one would have been Virtuosity.
Oh yes, I forgot
Where he
about
was the
Virtuosity.
villain. He was the villain in Virtuosity, and then of course I loved the movies he was doing around then, because if you really looked at some of the films, some of them were just so wacky. He did a film around this time called Rough Magic, where if you liked Cast a Deadly Spell, see that movie.
Oh really? Wow.
Oh yeah, see it, you'll love it. And he had done a film. I didn't see it till years later, but because we expect what to see Russell Crowe in. We expect he's going to be stern. He's going to be Maximus, the gladiator, and stuff like that. But he's got this range. He did this film just before this called The Sum of Us in Australia. It's a beautiful movie.
Wow,
it's a beautiful movie where The Sum of Us, he plays this young gay man who has a very close relationship with his father, who is unusually supportive of his son, so supportive that it catches a lot of people off guard, more conservative parts of Australia, and he just wants his son to be happy and find somebody. It's a really good movie. And I love seeing him in this movie. You mentioned the twirling Cole. It just blows my mind every time I see that. It's a really great part.
Isn't it awesome?
It's incredible. So I love Russell Crowe in this movie. I also want to give a shout out. This is why I say, even if you're on screen for like 2 seconds, because this guy's on screen for like 2 seconds. Last performance of Woody Strode, who checked out that guy's filmography. This guy was in everything, and he was such a great actor. He was such a sweet guy, and he's the guy when Sharon Stone is first getting into town and plays basically the part that you know from Fistful of Dollars and stuff, and he can automatically say like what her height is because he's making the coffins. 5'8", am I right? I'm always right. That guy. It was actually released after he died. This is his last film, and he's only on screen for a couple seconds. But now, of course, when I saw this in '95, I was not seasoned enough to know. This time I'm watching it, I'm like, shit, Rudy Strode, man. Yes. And it was his last film, so I want to give a special shout out to that. I loved seeing him there. And what a great little walk on for him.
And I know we're getting a little late, but I'll just answer really quick. Who was fun to see? I loved everybody who's mentioned here already. It was a blast seeing them in this movie. But I got to give a little bit of a shout out to Mr. Pat Hingle. I love I love Pat Hingle, and this was after he did, Batman Returns and that, and he done TV. Man was very busy. You look at his filmography, he's constantly in stuff. Whether it's good or bad, he was there, And my favorite role for him is still to this day from Maximum Overdrive as Hendershot.
Yeah, Hendershot, baby.
Oh, my God.
But
that's right, he was in that.
Oh, God, yeah. But, it was great seeing him pop up in this film. He was kind of surprised because, again, I hadn't looked up anything on this film for many years. And so I watched it and I'm like, holy shit, that's Pat Hingle. He's in another Western. That's awesome. We just saw you in all the Batman films. So, for me, it was kind of fun to see. And also a big surprise was Gary Sinise in a horrible wig. The wig needed its own credit, but as Ellen's dad. So those were surprises for me, and they were fun to see in this film. So So I think we're going to wrap it up here, folks. I hope you've enjoyed Western Month. It's been eye-opening and fun to watch and revisit some of these films, and it's kind of cool to see. And it's unfortunate that the Western genre not nearly as popular as what it once was, but we still have films out there that are definitely worth watching, at least from the past, and some's coming up yet, mostly in the indie scene, that might be worth checking out if you like the Western genre. So we'll go down real quick, and this is where we're going to have folks just tell you really quick where you can catch them when they're not here. So Cole, where can they catch you when you're not here?
I'm so damn fast I can wake up at the crack of dawn, rob 2 banks, a train, and a stagecoach, shoot the tail feathers off a duck's ass at 300 feet, and still be back in bed before you wake up next to me. You can find me at Shadows and Lovers Productions. Seek us out. We make really quirky independent horror movies.
From what I'm told, women don't like guys that fast, Cole, so you may want to work on speed just a little. Just putting that out there, and not anywhere at all. Just putting that out there. You may want to slow it down just a little bit. So,
less speed, more stamina.
Hey, but I thought Leo got all the girls.
No.
Well, he didn't have them for long. Anyway.
Yeah. And David Thewlis. Anyway.
Wow.
And Glenn, where can we find you when you're not here, sir?
You can find me on Facebook with B-Movie Bunker and Guy in a Bunker Productions. Same thing on the YouTube. You can also find me at guyinabunker.com. If I ever update my webpage ever again or record another movie review, who knows when I will do that, but I will eventually. You can also find me on gncast.com with the Adventure Party, the gaming podcast I do almost every week. Otherwise, just follow me on Twitter at Guy in a Bunker.
Fantastic. And Scotty D?
You can catch me at movieocrity.com. You can also catch my web series, Movieocrity, at vimeo.com/channels/movieocrity.
Fantastic. And yes, you can catch links to all their stuff on specialmarkproductions.com, where I've got the spoiler room archive, the final cut episodes, most recent reviews I've done, as well as some other things on that site. It's always getting updated as much as I can when I can get to it, so you'll want to check it out there. And also check us out on the Twitters at SpecialMarkPro, and head on over to Facebook. I've been digging doing these theme months, and I've asked for some suggestions, and we've gotten some great suggestions, which we will be doing soon. I haven't planned out August yet, but there's some great stuff out there. I've been enjoying these theme months. So head on over to the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/SMPRD, and you can have a say and even let us know what movies or what theme month you'd like to see. We got some great suggestions, and I'm going to be putting some of those out there soon. So stay tuned, my friends out there. Thank you for joining us down in the spoiler room tonight. And now, let's say good night, everyone, or some other great Western goodbye. Anyone?
Adios.
Adios. Glenn, you got one?
Yeah.
There you go. Scotty D.
Happy trails to you.
Nice. And I will just say, hi-ho, silver, away. Thanks for listening to Western Month, folks, and have a good evening.